Welcome to It's Not Easy Being Green. I'm Shawn Henning. During each episode of It's Not Easy Being Green, we explore different environmental topics with our guests. We invite you to email your thoughts and comments on the issues we discuss to green@wuwf.org. Today's topic is ecopsychology. Our guest today is Dr. Michael DeMaria, a clinical psychologist, ecopsychologist, author, consultant, and teacher. He's written 2 books, numerous articles, and recently released his first CD, The River. Dr. DeMaria has also given national and international presentations on the role nature, creativity, and spirituality play in the healing process. So I guess we want to start, Dr. DeMaria, with what is ecopsychology, because it's a very curious title that most people probably haven't heard of before. I know I hadn't before we started to do this.
It's a good question, Shawn. Basically, ecopsychology is an area of psychology that looks at how human beings are either in or out of balance with their ecology, with their environmental or natural surroundings. And the way I like to tell people in most of the time, to make it as simple and understandable as possible, is that in many native cultures, going back thousands of years, when the medicine man or medicine woman of the tribe was trying to see whether or not somebody was what we'd call emotionally or psychologically healthy or okay, one of the first things they'd be looking at is not only the individual, but the relationship of the individual to their environment. And even more importantly than that, the relationship of the village to the environment. So their understanding of mental health went way beyond just being a skin-encapsulated ego, which most of our traditional psychology does. They're looking at that person in relationship to the whole ecology or environment that they're in. So ecopsychology in some ways is a new spin on a very ancient idea.
Very interesting. Well, how did you get involved with this, and how do you use this in a clinical application?
Again, good question, Shawn. I was very fortunate. I went to a place called Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania back in the early 80s for my master's and PhD. There I worked with an incredible man, Dr. Rolf von Eckartsburg, who was one of the very first, I think probably one of the first psychologists on the American continent to coin the word or use the word ecopsychology. It's really only come into awareness now, probably in the 90s. There was a book by Dr. Rozak written in the mid-90s that actually used that title. But I was exposed to it close to 20 years ago. And it's just grown in terms of my own interest and application now. In terms of using it clinically, one of the first things I like to do and talk with people about is their relationship with nature in general. You wouldn't believe how many people don't look up at the sky, or how many people have never gone in the Gulf of Mexico before, or the last time they ever took a walk on a nature trail. And these seem like silly questions at first to people who are coming in with serious problems: divorce, death of a loved one, severe depression, or even manic depression, even schizophrenia. But one of the ways it can be applied is, are you connected to the earth? Are you connected to the world at large? And another story I like to tell people, that when I really started getting into this in a big way, I was going through a very difficult time myself, and was going through a lot of emotions, and suffered a very severe loss in my life. I was working with some native teachers that I've worked with off and on for the last 12 years, and I said, you know, what do I do? I mean, I'm just in so much pain, I'm not sleeping, etc. They said, go and lie on the earth. Put your chest where it hurts. Lay on the ground, lay on the earth.
And did you do that? And did it help?
I did that. First I thought, you know, this is crazy, this is ridiculous.
Well, I hope you had like some soft Pensacola beach sand to lay in.
Yes, well actually some sand or actually nice grass is wonderful too. That's important. Don't have anything between you and the earth. But I did it, and I was able to sleep better, I felt better. And I know a lot of the people out there will joke about hugging trees, but native people prescribe that. Medicine people would actually prescribe that for their healing sometimes.
That's a perfect segue into the question that I was afraid to ask, but I really did want to ask about trees, and that has to do with the recent storm. When I went outside after the storm, now I was one of the very fortunate people. My house was okay. I lost a couple of ceiling fans on the veranda, but I lost 8 trees in the backyard. And I know plenty of people lost way more than that. But there were little bits and pieces of leaves and things plastered everywhere, and there must have been 3 or 4 inches of that leaf debris and everything all over the ground. And when I walked outside, I felt like I was entering the scene of a mass plant murder, and it was devastating. And I know I'm probably going to take some heat for this, but I really just wanted to take the opportunity to ask you about that and find out if that's, am I really weird, or is that
No.
common, and what do you do about it?
Great question. Not weird at all. In fact, if we look at the history of human beings on this planet in relationship to nature, particularly going back probably 50 to 100,000 years ago, people that wouldn't be very different from us have lived on this planet, and for more time than not. In fact, it's a very, very recent development, and actually somewhat of a strange development if you look at the whole history of human psychology. And when I say psychology, I mean the way people approached healing in the world. All of our ancestors saw a continuous connection between the human world and the natural world. And what's strange, actually, and weird, is that in the last 2,000 years, we've been taught that we are somehow separate and superior and different than nature, and nature somehow doesn't feel or doesn't have an experience. Native tradition and ecopsychology finds this to be true, and there's interesting research, Secret Life of Plants, all different kinds of things.
I read that book.
It's a wonderful book. Is the idea, in fact, ecopsychology draws from what's called deep ecology, which says that not only is nature part and parcel of the human world, but it's considered as important. And when you think about the trees were here for, millions of years before we were, and actually created the atmosphere for us to breathe in. And if you look at anybody who looks at the carbon-oxygen cycle, as trees let out the oxygen, take in the carbon dioxide, we breathe out oxygen, they take in, and breathe out the carbon dioxide that they take in, you see that they're part and parcel of who we are, and that we're simply two parts of one being in a way, the Gaia hypothesis or the Gaia theory. And so, very, very true. I think particularly very sensitive people understand this and know that plants, trees, etc. they don't feel in the same way, but 98% of their DNA is the same as ours.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. I have lots more questions to ask you. When we come back, we'll learn more about ecopsychology, so stay with us. We'll be right back.